Hello and welcome to this Festival Pro tutorial video. Today we're going to take a quick look through the vendor process, so how to take applications, review them, add them in, give them a pitch fee, so on and so forth, taking payments and receiving back information. Now most people will start the process by taking applications from prospective vendors, and we've got a default form for this. So we'll go dashboard forms to get to our forms list, and then we'll go under vendor forms and the vendor application form down here. Of course we could just search that up in this top corner. Application, we'll get all of our application forms show up. Here's an artist one, guest one, but this is the vendor application form that we want to look at. So this is a public form. If I click into settings, we'll see the fields that we're taking on this form. So we've got company name, first name, these are our primary contact fields. This field's even taking addresses and postcodes. You might find that a lot of this stuff is irrelevant to yourself and you don't need it. You could always come here and delete those. Also, you might find that some of these things need adjusting. So if we look at the food vendor here, we've got food, drinks, other, clothing, but we could come into this here and go to options. This will allow us to change where these options sit or edit them. And you may find you have entirely separate questions that are not included on this form, so we can go down to the bottom and add a new field. You'll find in the documentation more detail on what all of these fields do, but they're quite standard. Text boxes, large text boxes, drop down options, counters. We could add a new question in here that's maybe a radio button. Do our vendors require high vis for some reason? I mean, they're likely all to say no, but we can add them in just like this. That becomes another question. You can move that around on your form. Now, if we go and have a look at the settings on this form, we'll see that the access options are set to public outside world, which is correct. That's what we want. And login, no. This means that everyone who comes through this form will become a new contact in your platform. And that's what we want, because after that we'll review those contacts, decide who we want to keep, and then we can start confirming people and sending emails. So if we have a look at our vendor form on the list again, you'll notice here that it's got a copy URL and visit button, whereas the vendor contract below just has a preview. That's because the bottom one is an auto login form. It's a form that we're going to want to send to an existing contact in your system. We'll have things in their profile already set up, things like their vendor fee. Whereas in the first instance, we don't know who these people are. They're just coming to apply. So they'll go through the public link, which is just this URL, which you can link people to or embed it in an iframe on your site. We can view here all of those questions that are on that form. Here's our question about high vis. And once somebody has completed the form, you'll find them over here in the registrations, existing as a contact, soap company, vegan plates, the fruit stand company. So the next step would be to review and accept these applications. You can either click on view to see the entry itself, and here we can see everything that they filled in on their form. But another way to do this is utilizing the add columns feature. You'll find using add columns, you can then add any of the questions that were on that form. Name of stool, website address. There's our require high vis question that we put on there. But you can also add any profile fields in here. So you can add general accreditation if you want to accreditate them a certain number of passes, at the same time as adding the confirmed vendor tab here. You can also add agreed site fee as well. But for now, we'll just deal with the confirming the vendors, and we'll deal with the site fee and the accreditation a little bit later. So now on our registrations list, we can see these fields that we added, and we can see the confirm vendor field here. So we could review all the kind of questions that we have got answered, and we know that actually the fruit stand, these guys sound great, we've been on their website, we want to confirm them. I can click in here, mark them as yes. You can also do this by going to the profile fields at the end, going to the vendor tab, and marking them as yes. So it depends which way you prefer to work. Some people do the pop-up. I prefer to use the inline editing because I can view all the information I want in one place. Now it might be that you need to add somebody in manually. Maybe they don't come through the form for some reason. And you can do this just by going up to the top here, vendors, add new. Here we can add in the name of the business. So perhaps Burger Queen, and then you'll need your contact and their email address. We can also start to add things like marking them as a confirmed vendor. And the other important fields generally for the default vendor flow are the agreed site fee and the accreditation. Now I'll do this as I add the new vendor. Add a site fee of 444 and give them 3 vendor passes. If I add them to the profile, we see here they are with their 3 vendor passes marked in as confirmed. If I go vendors view all confirmed, we get our whole list of everybody that has either been confirmed from the vendor form or, like Burger Queen, added ourselves. This is usually the point where people start to add in the agreed site fee. This is linked to a fee on the contract, so automatically linked together and charged on this via Stripe. And this is also quite a good time usually to add accreditation. So I'll just add that field in here as well. And I can see that this confirmed vendor, Anna Arts and Crafts, she hasn't got any accreditation, so I'm going to give her 2 passes. And Anna also does not have an agreed site fee in here, so I can come in here and add her site fee. It might be that we want to update all the same type of people to have the same fee. We could go down to update all, and here we could then choose that field and update, say, everybody's site fee to the same amount. For me, it's quite good having these separately. It's easier for us to see and good to show you the differences when we start interacting with our vendor contract, which is the next step. So once we've got our contacts in here and we've assigned them their site fee and their accreditation, next thing we want them to do is tell us some information back and pay their fees. If we go to dashboard, forms, vendor forms, we'll find our default vendor contract. The important difference between this and the application form is that under settings, we'll see the access options is set to auto login. This means that anyone who interacts with this form needs to be sent a unique link, and that unique link will save anything they input on the forms to their profile, but will also draw information out of their profile to influence the form. For example, with our vendor contract, we're going to send this out to people, and when they complete it, we are going to want the site fees to be different for each person. So here are the registrations of everyone who has filled in this form already. And I'm going to want to send the same form to the Burger Queen. So let's go vendors, view all confirmed, and here I can see that contact that we made earlier, Burger Queen. If I click on the Burger Queen's email address, I can just come in here, choose that vendor contract, and this is that link that will be generated uniquely. Got an awful lot of extra numbers at the end. This is part of the encryption. And if I send this out, we can then click that link, and you'll note that the form we're interacting in is personalized to the contact. It's pulled through the site fee. Now, vendor type and size of site may be something that we're not collecting or not using. In this terms, let's get rid of size of site and we'll add in vendor type, and we'll see how these forms interact in a live and direct manner. So Burger Queen themselves, let's come in here and just set their vendor type. I'm going to make the Burger Queen a food and drink vendor. And if I go back to the form and refresh, we can see that that information is pulled in from their profile. And the size of site perhaps we don't need. So we can go back to that form, open up our vendor contract settings, and then find that same field in the top page text. And here we can see the size of site. So I'll just get rid of that row. I could just delete it, but I'm going to use the icon here just to delete the entire row and save that. I can come back over here and refresh. We can see that's gone. So this section at the top is your top page text. And then below that, we start to collect the information that we might need. First name, last name. The site fee is a link cost linked to the agreed site fee. And then we have other things in here such as extra child and adult tickets. You can see on the form that can come through, input those, purchase extra tickets, maybe do more money on the electric hookup, or some people do it by the size of the site. But you'll just need to customize these forms as to what you might need. Down here we collect all the document uploads, risk assessments. They can sign these and save them. And you can see now this is going to take them through to a Stripe payment page, total up the items that they have got against them, and they can go here to pay now. I'm just going to put through a test submission. And if you look in the documentation, you will find a way that you can do this if you need to just set up test mode for your Stripe payments. Don't forget to take it out of test mode if you are then going to take active payments. But I can run this transaction through. They'll get this completion page. They'll also get any tickets assigned to them sent over to them depending on the form settings. We go into the vendor contract. We'll see here that on completion we are not currently sending any tickets. If I choose this one, we'll just be sending the tickets to the person who is booking. But let's go to the registrations list, where we can now see our paid entry by the Burger Queen. If I click on view here, we can see the information that we submitted. So we can view that entry by clicking view and see what they submitted on their form, how much they paid, whatever it was for. And if we view somebody else in this list, we'll start to see how this builds out when they select tickets. And here for Andromeda Clothing, you can see Kevin McLeod and Martin Lowry each have their own individual ticket codes here. And if I scroll down to the bottom, we'll be able to view those tickets. Here's their ticket codes and their staff passes. And obviously you can look up further tutorials on how to customize the designs of all of these. The important thing is that the QR code remains. You can also issue refunds through the platform. If I click into the refund next to Burger Queen, we can either input an amount, say 45, and hit refund. That will just refund 45 back to the Burger Queen's payment method. You can also use refund and cancel booking. This will actually refund the amount but also void off all of their tickets. If you have to do something halfway in the middle, you can refund them a partial amount. You can view their entry, and then next to any ticket code there is an option here to void. You might find that you want to search for your vendors that have actually sent this contract back. You can search through any part of your vendors list by going to vendors and search. In here we want to search for everyone who's a type vendor, who is confirmed, who perhaps has been sent but not filled in their vendor contract. And I can search for this. And in my case everybody has filled it in. If I search for those who have filled in, here we go. Here are all of our returnees. You can obviously bulk email anybody at the end of the list. So you can run a search on any set of combinations and come down here and bulk email it. You can also export any bits of information that you might require. So in short, to recap, the standard vendor process involves adding a vendor to your system, either by adding them in manually, vendors add new, or taking them through an application form which is set to public. When those registrations come through, they'll come through to your list here at the end, allowing you to either add the columns or go through to profile fields and mark people down as confirmed. They will then show in your vendors all confirmed list, where you can go ahead and add them their level of accreditation and any agreed site fee. The next step would be to edit the contract form under vendor contract and payment advance. In here you can adjust anything that you might need, remove fields that you don't want and add new fields that you do. You can also go through and set things like how your confirmation email comes through, what the completion page looks like. And then you just need to send this vendor contract to your confirmed vendors. We do this by sending an email via an email template, either by clicking individually on somebody, going down to bulk email, and then choosing the vendor contract in advance, which generates this unique link for them to fill in. You can edit that email here under files and templates, vendors, vendor contract in advance. And then once you've received all of this information, either search for the people who haven't sent it and chase them up, or hopefully you get everybody fill it in nice and easily, and then we can come in here and export any of the bits that we might need. Maybe we can export out all of our public liabilities and risk assessments into a nice little zip folder. And your vendors themselves will turn up with their tickets on the gate while they get scanned in. If I mark this one manually as scanned, you'll see once they are scanned in, they will have a timestamp there against them. So I hope this Festival Pro tutorial has been useful and helpful in getting you started with the vendor process. As we say, every festival is slightly different and your process may vary, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point, and do be sure to book in a tutorial session if you need some customizations or some help in building this out bespoke for your event.